I invite Debbie Callender to come forward.
The aspect of the power ritual that I would like to talk with you about today is the unique opportunity it holds to celebrate and honor diversity, the needs and situations of people who feel other than the norm. As a Unitarian lay chaplain, I suspect we have a higher likelihood of providing families with diverse identities the kinds of milestone rituals that fit them. We talk with many whose religion or absence of religion, whose gender or culture are treated as obstacles to the kinds of services that they might be seeking that are traditionally held in churches. It's common knowledge to you all, I'm sure, that as Unitarians we were the vanguard of same-sex marriage in Canada. It is important to acknowledge that people still long for their faith communities at important times in their lives, even when those faith communities do not accept them for all of who they are or impose expectations on them that they are not prepared to meet. I think of a sweet couple, very much in love, at whose wedding I officiated recently. Both partners were heartbroken that they couldn't be married in the Catholic Church, to which they had been devoted all their lives. They wanted it so badly they tried with 5 separate priests before reaching out to me, but because they were 2 men, the door was closed to them. As a lay chaplain, it was of course my mandate to give them a wedding service as close as possible to what they would have experienced in their home church. And for the first time, I read scripture and spoke psalms that were soothing for their hearts and prayed to their God to bless and sanctify their union, to draw upon their source with them. Any identity diverse from the mainstream can stigmatize people in the eyes of their community. I've been asked more than once by couples who had rejected theism to include the elements of an earth-based faith in their ritual, to include the 4 elements in the ritual language of the pagan way that made the service authentic for them, even though it was called a wedding and not a hand fasting, in order to avoid that stigma and allow family and friends their comfort zone. People entrust us with their secrets. I married a couple who were both elders. They had spent decades together and their extended families believed they had been married all along. This was a very bittersweet day for them, as one of them was ailing and they wanted to be married before death could part them. It was my challenge to dispel the shadows of shame and the fear of impending loss that they carried into this, and make it instead an intensely romantic and rich experience, more mystical by virtue of their secret. People have the opportunity to be a part of their healing. When the beautiful and youngish grandmother came to me to plan the dedication to life of her little grandchild, there was an urgency and a hopefulness that was really apparent, and she was lovely about her insistence that she had found just the right officiant in me, but she never articulated why this was. I arrived very early on the lovely day of the backyard service. I'm a little time challenged, so I try to get there really early. And so I had the opportunity to kind of watch in a leisurely way while I was working on committing their ceremony to memory, while the young mother and father and their families hung lanterns in the trees and prepared for their reception later that day. Over time, I became invisible, and their natural conversation began to illuminate the urgency for me. The young father had a bright academic future that was being tabled for a time so that the young family could get a stable start. The young mother was nervous and self-deprecating, attending to the service of arriving guests rather than socializing. I believe the service I carefully crafted, celebrating the joy and expansion of family experiences when a new life comes among them, helped ease some of that strain and help them all to transcend their concerns and be in a place of joy with a beautiful couple who stood in the breeze before their altar, beaming love at their precious baby girl. The grandmother hugged me goodbye, bathed in radiant smiles, and told me I had hit the right mark. One winter's evening, I met a couple who were very anxious to be married in as short a time as possible. Days, not weeks, not months. They never shared with me the reason for their haste. They were both quiet, polite people of few words, It was nevertheless extremely important to them that their marriage fit the traditions of Vietnamese weddings. But they didn't have enough English to articulate for me what these traditions were. So I did my due diligence in researching this, of course, and sending them draft services by text and by email that they discussed with their families and approved. I was awed on the day when I arrived at their parents' home, when the whole family received me like some kind of visiting dignitary. Everyone was offering me refreshment at every turn, and they were all so generous about explaining their traditions. The wedding service was intimate and touching. The groom cried. It always seems to be the groom who cries. And afterwards, the whole wedding party wrapped me in their arms for group photos. I will never know what pulled them to marry under such pressure, but I will never forget their earnest faces or the love and the trust with which they treated me. The call to lay chaplaincy that clenched my heart the tightest was the call to plan and deliver a memorial service for a woman who was shattered at the loss of her mother. This daughter had lived in white culture most of her life and had not had the opportunity to spend the kind of time and achieve the kind of intimacy she longed for with her departed mother and the culture of her birth. Her mother had grown up on reserve and been captured in the 60s scoop and survived all of the loneliness, displacement, and abuses of residential school. Her life had been troubled by many of the efforts to cope that afflict colonialized Aboriginal people. Even in sharing with me, they described her with reverence and honor and respect that I've rarely witnessed. The daughter and her sister knew they had to give their mother a memorial in the First Nations way, but because they had been separated from their people and the short window of time available to them, they needed help. I was lucky I could draw on a great deal of help from my Aboriginal sisters in spirit, who continue to teach me what it means to be a real ally. It took a village to plan and execute that memorial, but it was exquisitely beautiful, and it made the departed mother absolutely come to life and tell us who she was. Somehow the knowledge needed was channeled to us by the mystery, and it was a great gift to be a part of that day. From the moment I met my first wedding couple and was baptized by the surf at the end of Marie Curtis Pier, until the moment that will come of my last experience as a lay chaplain, I will continue to be filled with the mystery and the joy and the power of ritual. Blessed be. And I would like to invite Elaine Hartman to come up and share her experiences with us.